This anachronism, hello everyone, is Canadian high. That's what I call it. So as to revolutionize the automobile industry, we go to a revolting Cox concert in downtown Detroit because, alas, we have to drive in order to arrive. And while that drive is only from Ann Arbor or perhaps from Toledo, we feel smug with ourselves over this decision. And what were our choices after all? I mean, that is, if we were indeed going to go to the concert. Also, it is decided at some point during the evening that after the Revco concert, we're going to cross over into Canada to catch a late show at the Gay Dive in Windsor. And the night turns out to be a long one. Before that, especially because unlike the incredibly mesmerizing and downright rapturous Depeche Mode concert we'd caught about a year ago in Auburn Hills, the Cox were, well, not so much revolting as all that, but they gave me a pretty massive headache. Fortunately, I do not get migraines, or at least if I do, I am naively unaware of them. But if I did, I'm pretty sure that's what I would have had by the time they performed Beers, Steers, and Queers, which was only about halfway into the set list that night. So, I had almost forgotten completely about Canada and had set my sights on the nearest exit, and this is where my eyes remained until the encores were over. My head hurting so bad I felt as if I might throw up. This turns out to be pretty typical of how I am when it comes to attending most such concerts, especially those in which I experience what to everyone else around me must be the rarest of treats, or the closest thing to heaven on this side of said purported heaven. The most especially when we're all standing upright, when there are no seats upon which we may comfortably sit while enjoying the live sounds of whomever. And there wasn't a chair in sight, not even a folding one. But there was nothing but rowdy, high, incoherent kids, each bouncing here and about, and as often as not bumping right up against each other, including myself, as I was nearly tackled at least a dozen times. And so the night stretched on and on before the echoes of the encores had finally subsided, and not too terribly long afterwards, we had crossed the border into Canada, Windsor. During my entire stint at graduate school and not so far away Bowling Green, all of the gays and gals, as each weekend slowly approached, were always chomping at the bit about Windsor. Are you coming this weekend? You can't miss it. You'll finally join us, won't you? And on this went. But I never did. And what were they all pining for, you might wonder? That is, if you didn't have the misfortune of living in the area during any portion of the 90s. Well, apparently it was for one thing and one thing only. Naked men. That's right. The whole ache for Windsor was an ache to watch men perform in their birthday suits, live in front of audiences. It sounded incredibly sullen, if you ask me, and I was rather proud of the fact, gave myself a bit of self-indulgent credit, and took pride in the fact that I'd never once crossed the Detroit-Canada border to witness such a mess. So this would be my one and only trip to what turns out was a total hole in the wall joint. I walk in with the gang, rolling my eyes and explaining my story of never having been there, as I no doubt I've been doing all night. And the next thing I know, all four of us were all on high bar stools, sided up to a tall U-shaped bar, ordering drinks that were cheap and distinctively potent. To make a long story short, and this, my friends, is about as far as I will go, here comes, walking from the top of both sides of the U, about 6 men of a rather extreme diversity, but for one singular thing, besides the fact that each and all were wearing nothing but their birthday suits. Each one of those guys had a high and mighty erection he was following, and follow each they did, all the way around the U, to the other side, to the exit off a ramp from the top end of the opposite end that he'd entered upon. Oh, and each of the men were gorgeous, amazingly, stunningly, drop dead so. By then, of course, the concert had already become a distinct, if not indistinct, and inevitably forgettable moment in time for the four of us who showed up that night together. Revolting cocks indeed. But that one early morning hour or two in Windsor, Canada is burned forever, at least in the all too naive brain that supposedly sits inside of my head. I have yet to return, and no doubt never will. But oh, Canada, this lucky queen will forever be thankful to you.